Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. The last bastion of slavery in the United States was the state of Texas. It was June 19, 1865, when 250,000 enslaved people in the Lone Star State were declared free by the United States Army, a full 3 years after the enactment of the Emancipation Proclamation. The newly freed slaves called the day Juneteenth, the combination of the month and day of freedom. Up next on Another View, we celebrate this major milestone in American history. We're live in our parking lot with listeners who joined us for lunch, and we have history and storytelling in store for you over the next hour. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We're having a great time today because we've already kicked off our Juneteenth celebration here at WHRO Public Media, and we've got some storytelling, we've got some history going on, and I'm also going to be sprinkling throughout the show different things that you can do in order to celebrate Juneteenth. So let me start with a couple of them before we introduce our guests for today. One of the things that is a major staple of a celebration of Juneteenth is food, particularly food with red color. And so if you want to get your fresh vegetables and fruits and other delicious foods for your Juneteenth celebration, go by the Community Harvest Market, sponsored by the James E. Newby Jr. MD Foundation. This is our favorite cardiologist, Dr. Keith Newby's foundation, family foundation. They are going to be holding a harvest market at the historic First Baptist Church and in Norfolk, and that is at 201 East Brambleton Avenue. It is from 9 until noon this Saturday, June the 15th. Is this Saturday the 15th? Yes. June the 15th. From 12 until noon in the parking lot. So come on out. They have all kinds of farmers wear and fare there, and it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for you to get some fresh fruits, fresh veggies, and just hang out and have a good time. And I also want to tell you about our sister station, WHRO FM, in honor of Juneteenth. On the actual day, June the 19th, they're going to highlight the work of African-American classical composers and performers all throughout the day. So you're going to hear recordings from composers such as William Grant Still, Florence Price, Nathaniel Dett, and Valerie Coleman. Conductors, James DePriest, as an example, and also performers including Leon Bates, Damari and Anthony McGill, and so many more. So you want to check out WHRO FM, that is 90.3. on your radio dial. And then at 9 p.m., they're having a special Juneteenth edition of A Local Touch, which is going to feature archival recordings from Norfolk's Golden Gate Quartet and the choir of Carver Memorial Presbyterian Church in Hampton. Wow. Also performances by Norfolk State faculty and just a whole bunch of other things. So tune in to WHRO FM as they bring their way of celebrating Juneteenth. So if you're anywhere in the neighborhood of Hampton Boulevard and WHRO Public Media, come on out and join us in the parking lot for our Juneteenth celebration. We've got food trucks, storytelling, little-known history facts, and our Lisa Godley is live from the parking lot. Hi, Lisa. How you doing?
Hi, Barbara. This is so exciting. It's so nice to see people out here smiling, enjoying the food. And I'm telling you, Barbara, it's some really good food out
man.
here. You know,
Tell them save me some before the show is over, right?
Avocargo is back from last year. And if you've never had a sweet potato egg roll or a collard green egg roll, I'm telling you, you are missing something.
I agree with you.
Also, new with us this year, the Lit Auntie is out with some fried fish and fried chicken and some boardwalk fries that I have already sampled, and I'm telling you, they are delicious. And Tiani's lemon squeeze with some incredible cakes, strawberry cakes, lemon cakes. What was it? Banana pudding cake. I mean, it's just
Don't
some
forget
great
red
stuff.
velvet.
We got some great stuff out here. So, if you just want to eat, you can come on out. But we're also here to inform. And joining me here right now is the curator of Black History and Culture at the Jamestown Yorktown Foundation, Harvey Bakari. And Harvey, we just want to take a minute or two for you to explain to folks who don't know what Juneteenth is.
Yes, Juneteenth began in 2021 as a national holiday, but it originated in Southeast Texas because during the Civil War, the last state to receive information from General Granger about the Emancipation Proclamation was the state of Texas. So I lived in Southeast Texas, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Galveston. So I know a little bit about the history there, but it started there. And what made this a memorable holiday is that the community continued to persist in celebrating it, as opposed to many other celebrations African Americans had. So it went from a local holiday celebrated in the state of Texas, surrounding states of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. And in 2021, it became a national holiday to celebrate the end of chattel slavery. But actually, the end of chattel slavery was 6 months later with the 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
Thank you so much, Harvey. Harvey's going to be here with us throughout the hour, filling us in with some history facts, some little known history facts that we might not know. So we're all excited about this hour.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And hi, Harvey. How are you? We're glad to have you on the show with us today. And joining me here in the studio are Jay Johnson and Sheila Arnold. They are professional storytellers, and believe me, you are in for a treat. Welcome back, ladies, to Another View. We appreciate it. Jay, as we're sprinkling out through different things that are going to be happening to celebrate, there is a event called Advancing Legacy, standing on the shoulders of our ancestors. You are going to be one of the 3 dynamic speakers for that event. In addition to you, also Lillian Ebony Alexander, who is the executive director of the Black Family Land Trust, and Wanda Tucker, who is a descendant of 2 of the earliest Angolans who arrived in our shores in 1619. Now, this is celebrating Juneteenth and the 20th anniversary of the Black Family Land Trust. It is this Saturday, June the 15th. It is from noon until 3 p.m. There is a catered lunch that is included with it. And if you want to go, now, first of all, it is in Reedsville, Virginia, at My Margaret's House Bed and Breakfast in Reedsville, Virginia. And if you'd like to attend, you only have until 6 p.m. tonight in order to make your reservation. So here's the phone number, 804-453-9110. You have a deadline today of 6 p.m. But Jay, tell us a little bit more about what you guys are going to do on Saturday.
Well, what we're going to do is bring different aspects of our history into being, with Wanda being able to tell about her research and how she found out so much about her family, being among the first in Virginia. And then Ebony's talking about the Black Land Trust, which really a lot of people need to know about that because we do some funky things with property, either for grief or ignorance, or maybe some other reasons. But, people need to know the information she has. And she tells some wonderful stories as well.
Okay.
And then I'm talking in general about Black storytelling and why we should really take it to heart. That each person has, like we say, everybody's got a story. But we're losing our stories because nobody is telling them. So we have to get more people interested in really telling about their families and their history and their neighbors and churches and all of those kind of things, because young people feel disassociated, partly because they're not hearing the stories.
They don't sit around and hear the stories.
Right.
And is Juneteenth a good day for families to really sit down together and tell their stories?
Oh, absolutely, because they're with relatives, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, these times when people get together and you're hearing the stories. You may only be hearing pieces, but do something with the piece you hear.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, and Sheila Arnold joins us also, and she is like all over the place too. But there's another thing that's happening. Colonial Williamsburg is doing a series of things starting this Sunday, June the 16th at 6 a.m. Nikki Giovanni, world-renowned poet, will be under the iconic Compton Oak in the historic area, and she's going to be speaking about Juneteenth, and I believe 6 a.m.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's in the morning. It is a sunrise, Juneteenth sunrise service.
Wow.
Being held Sunday the 16th at Colonial Williamsburg under the oak in the historic area. And Sheila, you have the honor of introducing her there, correct?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm introducing Nikki Giovanni.
Well, not only is she introducing Nikki Giovanni, on the 18th and 19th of June, Sheila will be telling stories, including Portraying the Ancestors on June the 18th and Permission to be Free, a Juneteenth Story on the 19th. And both of these will take place at 1 p.m. at the Hennage Auditorium in the museum there in Colonial Williamsburg. Talk to us a little bit about what's going on.
Just include also that we'll have a panel on Monday that is about the blacksmiths.
Yes,
so they're going to be
that's
there
right.
as well on Monday. And then on the 18th is actually a panel called Portraying Your Ancestors. It's the women, 4 women that portray enslaved people, enslaved women at Colonial Williamsburg. And we're going to be looking behind the scenes, asking those kind of questions. How do you do this? What do you do? What are some of the experiences you've had in that position? What do you hope the future sees from it? How difficult it is to put that costume on. And I'm very excited because these are people I look up to. They're the OGs. They're the old folk that have been doing this work for years and really setting the pace. Colonial Williamsburg has set the pace as far as what African American
And they're going to get you for calling them the old people, but that's okay.
No, they OGs. You know that in our world, to be an OG means something good.
Yes,
you know,
it
that means something good. So they the OG. They the ones in charge.
Now, a lot of these events are free. So if you want to know more information, go to colonialwilliamsburg.org/tickets/Juneteenth. So, since we're talking about telling stories, ladies, Miss Sheila, would you honor us with a story? We would appreciate it.
That'd be great. I'm going to start with a story that I just did a little bit of about the enslaved descendants. Particularly in the Albemarle County, there are several of those houses, Monticello, Montpelier, that have now recognized that the life of a founding father could not have been a founding father without the people that made it possible for them to have time and leisure. And to leisure and money. Mm-hmm. And the way they got that was the people that worked the land. So this is part of a story. I'm going to go into first person just a little bit, but I promise I won't take long. Okay. As we have a moment at Highland Plantation, James Monroe's plantation, 5th President of the United States. Good day to you. I come right now because I just am trying to find out more about this Florida, the territory of Florida. I'm being sent there. Oh, not by myself. I have my husband, Toby, and our children. They're going with me, but I get worried. I don't know anything about this. You see, last year, I'm so sorry. My name is Betsy, and here in Highland is where I spent most of my life. But it was 3 years ago that Master Monroe, he mortgaged me. He mortgaged me. I don't know if y'all know what that means. I'm not right clear on it, but when I talked to Peter, Monroe's man, he say mortgage mean they take me and give me over to the bank. And the bank, they gives money to Master Monroe so he can still live and do the thing he do. But then if Master Monroe don't pay that, then I'm just sent off. Ain't no different than his horses and his cows and his sheep. 3 years ago, I was mortgaged. along with my family. And now, Master, he pressed for money. Pressed for money. He wasn't pressed for money, but we's the one that be pressed upon. We's the one. And we ain't no different than them folk pressing the grapes down to make the wine. It's us who is pressed upon, and it's our sweat and our blood that done be in this soil, and now our sweat and our blood been sent away. I've been here since 8 years old here at Highland. My mama, she died when I was 2 years, and I come up here, and all the folk look after me here. I remember seeing that big oak tree that's near the house. First thing I saw, it was settled. It was rooted. That's what I thought. Maybe this would be my settling. I was 8 years old when I first think that. And every time I see that oak tree, every morning from the quarters, I look up and I see that oak tree. And I go, yes, I'm settled. I thought I was being taught how to be a lady's maid and such, but Miss Liza, she get married when I was 14, and nobody seemed to need me, and I took that as a sign that this be the land I'm supposed to be on. So I work with the sheep. Master Monroe, he has regular sheep, and he has merino sheep. Oh, they have the fine wool and such. I does really good work on them. And then the land, he all helps out with the land. We grow all kinds of grain here. We have apple orchard and peach orchards and tobacco. And we cut the trees down. Well, I don't personally like, but I helps wherever. It be our land. I wish you could smell the land. How the wind bring over the flowers that come from the field, and how the flowers come and they fill you up. I wish you could hear the birds as they sing right above us, and the sound of the cow as it lows in the evening. I wish you could see how the land, it goes on, and how it go up the mountains. And sometimes when the moon comes out, there be so many stars. I was proud of this land. I was proud. Master Monroe and Miss Elizabeth, they come back and they show off the land to folk. They so proud of this high land, he call it. But it be our land. Master Monroe come and he look over the land, but he don't work the land. Overseer Moon, he come and watch us work, but he don't work the land. We work this land. We work this land. This be more my land than it ever be Monroe's land. But we be the ones be mortgaged. And we be the ones pressed upon. And we be the ones be sent away. I'm being moved to Florida. I ain't got no choice. Leaving the land I'd always known. But maybe in Florida, they got oak trees too. Maybe next time we find a way to get our land and not be moved.
Wow. Well, I wish people could see you as you're telling the story. I mean, because I was smelling the flowers. I was seeing the moon. I mean, oh, Sheila, I think one thing about Juneteenth that also helps us in stories like the one you just told is the fact that people don't, that when we talk about being enslaved, the humanity is gone. You bring the humanity out.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a little bit.
I just think it's important that, that I agree. The word slave, and we use the word enslaved more now, and that's really good because people weren't born slaves. They were made into that. They were enslaved by enslavers, which is, I talk about uncomfortable, but that's an uncomfortable word, but a true word. And I think that once we connect to the humanity, we cannot just see, oh, it's just something our country did. It's just a bad time that we had. It's just that was back then. It's not a just back then. These were humans whose lives were changed irrevocably and who are intrinsically tied to the land and to the breath of our country. And we must see the people behind the names of those big names that created a constitution, thank God, that created the Declaration of Independence, thank God. I'm grateful to live in a country where they did that, but they could only do it because of those of us, our ancestors, whose blood was in the ground, whose sweat was in the ground. We have to see the people behind those who were able to create something great.
When you're doing stories, because some of these stories are very, they become personal because it's about our ancestors. But what do you do to prepare, and how do you guard your heart?
I'll try to make that quick. So to prepare, I do a lot of research. And on this one particular one, I was commissioned by Albemarle, by the Highland descendants to come, Highland Plantation descendants to come and do this. So I got to do the research and actually meet the researchers, and they got a chance to see their research come alive this way. So I do a lot of that in preparation. And that's the main part, is I want to be really strong on my research. And then the other part of that is to just imagine and to kind of fill in those spaces about what it would have felt like. Then coming out of it can be very challenging because, I feel that pain. Or at least I want to. I want to try to feel that. I want to imagine what that could be like. And then I have to undo that in myself. And I think the most important part is to stay true to it, to allow my body to feel things, and then take the time it needs to cry and to release that a part of my body when it's afterwards. I don't know if that truly answered your question.
No, it did. It did. Because, when you were finishing, I mean, first of all, you have to take a moment to just just take it in. You know what I mean? And I was just watching your face, and that's what prompted the question, because I was like, how does she come out and be back to Sheila?
Well, what they could not see here is that I was not looking at either one of you, and I could not look at either one because I'm not in costume. So in order to go into that place, I couldn't see either one of you. Although I saw you peripherally, but I wasn't looking at you, and you all couldn't see that. On the radio, you could not see me do that, but I couldn't look at them. And then when I started back looking at them, that's when I could come back into character, come back to myself.
If you're just joining us, we're celebrating Juneteenth, the national holiday commemorating the freeing of enslaved people in Texas, the last slaves of the U.S. to be declared free by the Emancipation Proclamation. Our guests are Hampton Storytellers Jay Johnson and Sheila Arnold, and joining me live from the WHRO parking lot is producer Lisa Godley and historian Harvey Bakari. Hey, Lisa, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
We're good.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you could hear me or not, but I'm glad you can.
Yes, I can hear you.
Harvey and I have been talking, and there's some things I really want him to share about other celebrations. Some of them didn't quite take off. Some of them did, but it's important that folks know a little more history. So he's here to share. Go ahead, Harvey.
Yes, some of the celebrations that did not last as long as the Juneteenth begins as early as the end of the American Revolution. About 5,000 soldiers fought in the American Revolution, and they celebrated on the 4th of July. Contrary to Frederick Douglass' speech about the 4th of July, black people did, in fact, celebrate the 4th of July because those 5,000 soldiers were part of making this country independent from Great Britain. So those communities did, in fact, celebrate, but there are no lasting traditions of that celebration. The next one would be 1808. When the slave trade was abolished by Congress. That was also celebrated around the country by the black community. But again, no tradition survives as strongly as Juneteenth. And then the next one would be, of course, the Haitian Revolution in 1804. African Americans celebrated that as well, but again, it did not survive as Juneteenth. The advantage of Juneteenth is that the community had the persistence and the consistency to continue the celebration of Juneteenth. So that, again, included Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. So they continued that tradition. Now, Juneteenth, the popularity of it went down during the Depression, but there's some who argue it came back during 1968 during the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C., after Martin Luther King was assassinated. And it was at the Poor People's March in 1968 that some would suggest that Juneteenth became more popular and spread to other states and became a tradition that would not only survive in Texas, but start to spread and have meaning throughout the 50 states.
Hey, Harvey,
thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate that. It's always so much knowledge that we don't know, and it's important that we get to know that knowledge and I'm excited to be here and to be a part of being able to facilitate some of that. Also joining me here now, Barbara, is Chantel Davis, the owner of Avocargo. And Chantel, you have some of the most delicious food, honest to goodness. I'm crazy about the collard green egg rolls. How did you get inspired to do something like that?
My grandfather was known for his collard greens in church. And everyone used to say, Mr. Davis, it was so delicious. I just wanted to upgrade it because, this is the year of health. So I took the fat back out, replaced it with apples, which gives you that fat back texture, but a little sweetness. So that's how it was created.
We have a sweet potato egg rolls. What's your most popular noodle dish?
Well, it's the noodle dish because it's different. It's a mix between pancit and my own twist on it. I used to love curry my fun, so that's how I came up with that dish with all the different Asian and Caribbean influence. And then the braised chicken that you can get on top of it, which is like a sweet kind of Caribbean teriyaki, I like to call it. Or you could get the fried oyster mushrooms on it. That's for the plant-based community. They love it. Even if you're not plant-based, if you're conscious about your health, you love good food, Avocargo is the place for you.
Absolutely. And I have had that with the mushrooms, and that is very good. Barbara, we got more information for you. Just whenever you're ready to come back to us, we will share.
You know what? I wanted to ask you a quick question, Lisa. Could Harvey, since he lived in Texas, talk to us about what a particular celebration, Juneteenth celebration that he's been to, how different it was compared to where to other ones?
Harvey, Barbara wants to know about different Juneteenth celebrations and
his experience,
and how they compare.
Yeah, his specific experience.
Well, I think I can say, even though I lived in Southeast Texas, I can say that the nature of the original Juneteenth festivals included rodeos, which is not something that's nationally recognized, but again, it's Texas. Rodeo, fishing, family reunions, games, children's games, and there were also three elements of, some have argued there are three elements of Juneteenth. That's celebration, which is the food and the games and entertainment. Education, because it was important to educate a community that was many of them who were denied the ability to read and write during slavery. And then agitation, which is continuing Frederick Douglass' suggestion of civic involvement, continue agitating for civics to improve the lives of people who are making a transition from slavery to freedom in the United States. So it was really, and they also did reenactment, storytelling, just like Sheila Arnold's doing. That was an important part of it because they were passing on that tradition to the next generation. And obviously it worked because Juneteenth survived for generations and we're celebrating it today.
Thank you, Harvey.
All right, Barbara, there you go. You have it.
Yep.
And when you come back to us, Harvey has some very interesting information too about families, both free and enslaved families. And it was very fascinating to me as I listened, so I can't wait to share that.
Okay, we'll be back to you in just a little bit. Wow. Hello, Jay Johnson. We haven't forgotten about you. It's your turn to tell us a story.
I don't know why Sheila always goes first.
Well,
she's my mentor, so that's okay.
It could be because you pointed to her.
Yeah. Well, why save the best till last? She's the one. I mean.
So what story are you going to tell us?
Okay, I'm going to tell a story that's on the continuum, I would call it. And this is a story about a young woman who was a student at Tuskegee Institute during the time of the Civil Rights Movement. What some people probably don't know is that black colleges, called Negro schools at the time, were very resistant to students participating in the Civil Rights Movement because their number one thing was they had to protect the students. And, of course, parents wanted their kids protected as well. So at Tuskegee, there was a president who was trying his best, to pay attention to the parents and the board and keep his students on the campus. And it got to a point where the only way he was going to be able to satisfy the students was to bring the training onto the campus. And so that's what he did. Well, this young woman, Barbara Burke, came from Richmond, Virginia, and she thought she knew everything until she got to Alabama. And riding around with her boyfriend had seen, the shacks that people were living in, the iron pots where they, cooked in and washed clothes in, and, all of this poverty and all of this discrimination. Not that Richmond didn't have it too, but the parents protected kids from seeing the worst of what segregation was like. So she was kind of in a twit about this, and she felt she needed to do something. And I think most people probably thought she was lightweight and pretty, but not serious. But she signed up to take the training. So she gets to the training, and the first day she's fine. All they're doing is, telling you about nonviolent, resistance and, blah, 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 and some of the history and where things are happening all over the country, and particularly where they are, because they're not that far from Montgomery. They had even shopped in Montgomery. So she says, okay, I could do this. The second day was when they had to do the lunch counter stimulations. Well, there was Bobby sitting at the lunch counter, and she's supposed to be one of the people who's sitting there nonviolently. And behind them is a group of students who are being the white people. And they are spitting, and they are pushing, and they're calling you those names that you don't want to hear. And they had told them to ignore that, but Bobby's having a hard time ignoring all of this, especially when her person keeps bumping her chair and pushing on her. And so finally, after about 15 minutes, Bobby put her hand up, not to protect herself. She was not making a defensive move. And the trainer quickly pulled her out and said, I'm very sorry, Miss Burke, but you can't do this. And she, oh my goodness. Oh no. She started to say, well, let me try again. Okay. And then she thought, no, he's right. My grandmother always told me, that I had to watch my temper, So this is not the right place for me. I'm not. But she's walking away thinking, how could anyone fail nonviolent protesting? And so about 2 weeks later, she is in downtown Tuskegee marching with another group of students. And she's got this, banner, freedom now, and, all this. And she said, why did I tell Eugene I was going to do this? This is so stupid. We could get in trouble on campus. We could, oh my goodness. And so, but they're singing and they're marching. Well, he promised me that when we got to the courthouse, he and Harold will go say a few words, and then we would be back on campus. So I'm going to hang. I can do this. She's in the back of the line. The others are 2 by 2. And there's Bobby in the back, bringing up the rear. Well, all of a sudden, the student stopped. And she could hear these white people on the other side of the street. They're just jeering, and, the whole march is just at them the whole time. Almost felt like that training thing. But, they're going to get in and get out, right? But when the line stopped, they were around the corner, and she was the last person, so she wasn't quite there. And she peeked around, and there was the sheriff. He had a rifle in one hand and a bullhorn in the other. And there were the deputies, and they had dogs and hoses. And it was like still life. And then it started. The sheriff raised his bullhorn, and he says, listen, hey, niggers, I don't know what you think you're doing in downtown here, but you ain't supposed to be here. You got to leave here right now. You're going to be in big trouble. Well, students were frozen against the wall. I don't know what they expected, but they didn't expect this. And when the sheriff took the bullhorn down and raised his rifle, the hoses came on. The dogs started barking. All of a sudden, it was a whole different scene. Kids were sliding down the wall and rolling onto the sidewalk. The dogs are lunging at them. Bobby's standing there, and she's, oh, no, my body's not built for this. And so Bobby Burke took off back for the campus, running as fast as hard as she could. Not a minute's guilt in this, This is about survival. But she really felt bad. When she got back to campus, she went where she was supposed to be, which was choir rehearsal, because the concert choir was preparing for a concert at Radio City Music Hall, and Bobby was the head soloist. So she got in, and she's looking out the window to see where the kids are, and they're coming back, and they're wet, and they're holding each other up, but they seem to be okay. So she went into the choir room, excused herself to the choir master, sat down, and her seatmate looked at her, put her eyebrows up, because she knew where Bobby had been. And Bobby shook her head. And so she started to sing with everybody, but she's thinking the whole time she's singing, what can I do? There must be something I can do. I mean, really? What? And she's singing and going, her head is just going all this way. And finally, the singing stopped, and she thought, you know what? The trainer said there's some people who don't march. There's some people who don't sit at lunch counters. Those are the people behind the scenes who strategize for what needs to happen and how, and that's what I do. That's what I'm good at. That's what I'm going to do for the civil rights effort. That's what I'm going to do. Oh. And in the middle of it all, Bobby Burke opened her mouth and started to sing, "Oh, freedom, oh, freedom." And the choir joined in, spontaneously singing, "Oh, freedom."
I love it. I love it. And you know what? That is something that we don't talk a lot about, because we always talk about those that were out front, but they couldn't be out front without a strategy.
Right.
And without what was going on.
Right. And that's a true story.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know what? At least she knew herself. Because I tell you, every time I see those pictures with the dogs, too, I think to myself, could I have really been there? Could I have really done that? Wow. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. How are you celebrating Juneteenth? Give us a call and let us know what you plan to do. 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Let's go back out to Lisa and chat with you for just a minute. What's going on outside now?
Well, we're out here. There's some folks that have decided to retreat to the teleconference center, and they're enjoying their food in there. So we say hi, enjoy yourself.
Hello.
There's still a few folks out here, quite a few, still in line waiting for the vendors. But I'm here with Harvey, and he has some interesting, I promised you before, he was going to talk to us a little bit about Black families. So I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. And we promised to share some history, so that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Yes. Wanted to share with you some of the complications when it came to Black families during the days of slavery and before Juneteenth. Is that many times the families were not just one enslaved woman and an enslaved man. Sometimes one person was a free Black and the other person was enslaved. So that created complications. So I'll start with Virginia just to give you an example. So if your ancestors were here in Virginia and one was free, let's say the husband's free, then he would have to purchase his wife. He's only purchasing her. That means she is his slave. He has to then go to the courts for her to be manumitted and legally become free. Well, here in Virginia, after the American Revolution in the early 1800s, the free Black population increased. And so there was like a backlash against the free Black population. So what Virginia did in 1806, they said, if you free any of your slaves, they must leave the state of Virginia within 1 year. So how does that affect the family? Okay, your wife is enslaved or your children are enslaved. If you actually go to the courts and manumit them, when they become legally free, they have to leave Virginia in 1 year. So you can see the dynamics. You can see how intrusive the laws were of slavery. So you can imagine that during Juneteenth or any time when news of emancipation moved through the South, that these families are going to have a moment. If you're like a free black and your wife and your child is enslaved, you're going to be happy because, one, you don't have to, you can reunite with your family. You can bring your child, your wife to your home. They're no longer enslaved. You don't have to pay for their freedom. So you can see that that becomes a complication that it's not often addressed. Now, also, if a slave owner doesn't want to want the enslaved person to leave the plantation, because not everybody left the plantation after emancipation, there were various black codes that restricted movement. Then you have another complication. You're a free black. You want your wife, your children to come with you, but the former owner and the laws of those states, the black codes, prevent them from coming home, if you will. So family reunions became a very important part of Juneteenth. And family reunion also was important because for many people whose families were separated from state to state, they would put newspaper articles in black newspapers advertising information. Could you give me any information about my daughter? She was last seen in Tennessee. Could you give me information about my husband? But they would only do it in black newspapers. And that continued as late as 1910 of people looking for the lost family members. So that's an important element of Juneteenth. And so if there's the least a person can do on Juneteenth, it would be celebrating your families.
Wow.
Harvey, thank you so much. I love learning history. You know, Barbara, we're always saying Black history is American history.
Absolutely.
And, we got to know our history.
Yeah.
And, we got to explore the full history of our country, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I just love these moments and being able to talk about, different things. And, we all have those family reunions. Now we know a little bit more about that. I wanted to talk to another one of our vendors, a Marcus Cooper. Marcus has the Lit Auntie. And Marcus is here with fish and chicken and some of the best boardwalk fries. If you're a French fry fan like I am, some of the best boardwalk fries you'd want to eat. So we're encouraging you to come out and take advantage of the vendors while they're here. They'll probably be here maybe another hour. So we're excited about that, and we look forward to seeing you and enjoying what we're doing here this Juneteenth celebration. Barbara?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. And we'll come back to you in just a little bit. Let's go to our phone line. Steve Corneliuson joins us from Poquoson. Hi, Steve. You're on the line.
Thank you very much. What a great show. It's neat that you figured out a way to make Juneteenth into a celebration instead of just a history seminar with the food and the stories and everything. I mean, because that's what it is, right? It's a celebration.
Absolutely.
The reason I'm calling is that the thing that I want to say is, I've been working on this general subject for a long time because of Fort Monroe, 20 years actually. In my opinion, it would be important for the spirit of Juneteenth to expand by beginning also to celebrate the hundreds of thousands of self-emancipators who changed history. Somebody said a while ago that Juneteenth is about the freeing of enslaved people in Texas and everywhere. But Juneteenth ought also to be about the self-freeing, the self-emancipating of hundreds of thousands of people. Can I say one more thing? I don't want to take too much.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Steve, do me a favor. Explain it as briefly as you can when you say emancipators, exactly what that means. What did they do to be self? Go ahead.
Okay. Before the war even began, the black community nationwide already understood that if there was a civil war, it was going to be a colossal freedom opportunity. So, and actually the white power structure didn't know that. They were planning on this and that, and the ones that wanted to have emancipation and everything, they didn't know that. They didn't take that into account. What happened was, within weeks, actually within days after Fort Sumter, black people began escaping slavery and crossing Union lines and asking for federal sanctuary. Mm-hmm. Well, the key thing in that was when it happened at Fort Monroe, when Frank Baker, Shepard Mallory, and James Townsend came to Fort Monroe within weeks after Fort Sumter and asked for sanctuary. One thing led to another, and by the end of the war, hundreds of thousands of people had done the same thing, and it was centrally important in the political evolution of emancipation. So that's black Americans acting with agency, not just black Americans waiting to be freed.
Absolutely. You know, people can find out more information. Tell that and the research that you've done. How can they do that?
Well, it's easy. I have a Substack newsletter on the web, and it's called The Self-Emancipator. And so if you just Google for The Self-Emancipator, you'll find it. And I periodically publish things about this. What I say is I'm advocating more national understanding of this, and I'm also monitoring the progress of it because it's coming.
Okay.
Nothing more certain. Can I say one more thing?
Sure, very quickly. Very quickly.
There's nothing more certainly written in the Book of Fate than that Americans will come to esteem the multitudes of Civil War self-emancipators.
Wow. Thank you, Steve, for the call. We really appreciate it. Wow. Let me talk to Sherry in Portsmouth. Hi, Sherry. You're on the air.
Hey, Barbara.
Hey.
Hey, Steve. What we're doing for Juneteenth VA is doing to celebrate. We're going to be doing a play called Abolitionist Museum at the White House on Wednesday, June 19th at 3 p.m. Right there where the Eclipse stage is. And I encourage people to come to D.C. and join us with this because it's going to be a great celebration. And we're taking a load of people up there to D.C. So the number to call is 757-606-0569. And I just wanted like a quick thing in terms of like when I first started doing Juneteenth, it was June who?
Yeah.
June what?
Sherry, I was just getting ready to say you really are the queen of Juneteenth in our area because you were the ones who really brought it to our attention.
Well, we are so fortunate in the Tidewater Hampton Roads that this is the birthplace of America.
Yeah.
Basically, the nation we are today in 2024 started here, and we have a great opportunity to be the stewards of this great history. And Steve definitely has been at the forefront of making sure that people understand this history, because once they do, they're going to have to come here and see it for themselves. And so we want to be ready for that. And Fort Monroe would be the perfect location for a think tank.
There we go.
On its history, and that's what we need, because all of these incidents that happen, they dominate the headlines for a couple of days, and then they slip through the cracks. But if we have a think tank, we're going to be able to start really finding solutions to some long-held problems. Thank you for doing this today. Sounds wonderful. I was trying to get there in person, but things conspired to keep that from happening. But
well, I'm glad you called in. Thank you so much. That's Sherry Bailey out of Portsmouth. They're taking the Juneteenth play to the White House. Wow. So there we go. Absolutely. Wow. So Sheila, let me ask you: do you have a short story that about 3 minutes or so that you could tell us?
You're going to make me tell you a short story
pull your
about
mic,
3 minutes. Oops,
yeah,
sorry.
pull your mic down.
You'll make me tell a short story 3 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay, here we go. I was in 11th grade, and I don't think I've told you this story. So, okay. So I was in 11th grade, and I was angry. I was an angry black woman at that young age. I was, because I had just seen in a book something I had never seen before that hadn't been talked about in my classes at school. Oh, yeah, they taught us about those 3 black people, because that's all I ever heard about. 3 black people, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman. And for me, it was Martin Luther King Jr., that's right. But I didn't know any other things. And I went to a predominantly white school in Annandale, Virginia, 13 blacks at that school. But on that day, I was a angry black young girl. Walked into my history classroom with Miss Elliott and slammed it on her desk. It was a book, and I opened it up, and there in that book that was called The Black Book. And inside the Black Book, in the middle where I turned it, there were patents, things invented, and it was things invented by black people. And I asked her and demanded in no not so kind of voice, why are you not teaching us this? Everybody in the class stopped. Everybody else was white. They were all walking in and out. They had no idea what was going on. I was just finding my blackness right then. And I laid it down, and I was none so nice. I had sass all over myself and all under myself. And she looked at me, and I was like, anything could have happened. I could have gone one way or the other at that moment. But unbeknownst to me, Miss Elliott had been taking summer classes learning about African American history. She was a white teacher that just didn't know how to teach in a place where she might not have a black student, or how to teach even if she did have one. And she looked at me as I stood there with my nose flaring, I'm all anger, all about, and everybody wondering what would happen. And she looked up at me and said, "Do you want to learn this?" And I looked at her, I said, "Yes." And she said, "Okay." And on that day, in my 11th grade year, Mrs. Elliott changed her entire syllabus, and my classmates and myself started learning Black history was more than just 3 people.
Wow. And one day we will also understand that this history is American history and everybody should learn it, correct?
Absolutely.
Oh, I just love you guys so much. We are almost out of time, so I'm going to get back to Lisa for just a second. But Jay Johnson, Sheila, Arnold, they're going to be all over Hampton Roads this weekend. Go out, celebrate Juneteenth. Ladies, thank you so much. And we'll come back and do the Hampton Storytellers again soon.
Yay.
Absolutely, we will. Let's run out to Lisa real quick. Lisa, you got about a minute to wrap us up from outside.
That's going to be really, really fast. But I want Harvey to share something really quick, and then I want to speak to Tiani, who's out here with her
okay, we got 3
lemon
minutes.
Squeeze. Okay, all right, Harvey, go ahead.
Yeah, just in closing, one of the important legacies of Juneteenth was also business, entrepreneurship, land ownership, and community organization. That was something that they stressed over and over again, and it's good to see that out here at WHRP.
Oh, that's
Wonderful.
so nice.
That's
Yay.
great. Yes.
And I'm here with 4-year-old Tiani. Her mom's store is named after her. It's Tiani's Lemon Squeeze. And Tiani, what are you selling out here?
Lemonade and cakes.
She said lemonade and cakes.
Yep.
Could you hear her, Barbara?
We could hear her, yes.
Okay. All right. I think they've actually sold out of the lemon cakes, but they still have some other delicious ones out here, including red velvet.
I am so happy I went out there before the show started.
You were very, very smart. You were very, very smart to do that.
Lisa, in the last minute or so that we have, give me your impressions. How are you feeling about the celebration and Juneteenth?
Well, I'm excited to see all the folks that have come out to be a part of this and to celebrate with us. The food has been excellent. The knowledge that we've been able to gain has been excellent. I just, I'm so excited. Our DEIB committee lead is out here and several of our members, and we're just very excited to be able to bring this piece of American history to our listeners and let them hear things that they may not have heard before. It's just a wonderful opportunity to share this. I'm looking at our president and CEO, Bert Smith. He has some cake in his hand right now.
And for people who don't know, what is DEIB and what does it mean to WHRO?
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Isn't that right, Rhonda? She's our lead.
Absolutely. And thank you, Barbara and Lisa, for all you do for the community. Another View is wonderful, and thank you for all the Juneteenth celebrators.
Thank you so much,
there
Rhonda.
There you go. There you go.
We appreciate that so much. And the audience, we hope that you've enjoyed today's Juneteenth celebration and that you will create your own Juneteenth activities on June 19th, the official national holiday. Share this show with a friend. Go to anotherviewradio.org, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, we're going to be up close and personal with the mayor of Newport News. His name is Philip Jones. He is a powerhouse, and you are going to love hearing his story. So please be sure to tune in. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer, and Danielle Saunders answered our phone. Special thank you to audio experts Victor Bowen and Todd Washburn for making our live hits sound so good. I'm Barbara Hamley. Celebrate, everyone. Celebrate Juneteenth this weekend and all through the holiday. Have a fantastic weekend, and let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.